Hi there. Thanks again for being a part of this week's Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. Coming up in just a few minutes, what's your work situation like? Are you the problem or others around you not pulling their weight? If so, how should you handle it best? My guests, they authored a book called Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict, and it's a segment that I hope will be a learning tool for all of us. But first, the Area Office on Aging of Northwest Ohio sees a real situation unfolding in and around the Glass City. And it's to the point that it's now the focus of a project underway looking at life expectancy in one town. Very close proximity, but very different outcomes. I want to welcome in the president and CEO of the Area Office on Aging in Northwest Ohio, Justin Moor. Good to see you, sir. By the way, haven't had you on here since the transition. Now the lead of this agency you've been with for such a long time. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jeff. It's an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about diving into what the project looked at and specifically why you guys were looking at life expectancy and what you found.
The Area Office on Aging is all about helping older adults live better and longer. And we figured the best way to figure out how to do that is to look at the data. So we looked across our 150-mile long service area for the neighborhood that has the highest average life expectancy and found that's DeVoe in West Toledo. That surprised many of us. We would have guessed maybe a Sylvania, Monclova, Ottawa Hills. But DeVoe in West Toledo is the highest life expectancy where people are living at 84 years old on average. And then we looked for the neighborhood that's where people are living the least long, and that's less than 4 miles away in the Vistula neighborhood in North Toledo.
Let's talk through some of the report and what we're looking at right there for people there at home. You looked at life expectancy estimates by census tracts, talking about 84.4 years DeVoe, Vistula 62.5 years, almost a 22-year difference, separated by how far?
Less than 4 miles. So we were baffled because how can you lose a generation of life by traveling less than 4 miles?
Yeah.
So with that data, we felt compelled to do something about it. We felt like this is not right. We believe that individuals should be able to live better and longer regardless of where they live. That shouldn't just be a right of a privileged few. So we really started looking at the data between those two census tracts and comparing to Monclova as well to try to figure out why it is that there's this huge life expectancy gap and how we can go about closing it.
We wanted to share a couple of other reasons, and obviously as we talk about things like this, you start hearing in your head a lot of the discussion that has played out ever since before the pandemic, and that is the social determinants of health and where you have access to better life standards. And a couple of the things that we're going to go to the next graphic talking about the breakdown of health insurance specifically and how that weighs into all of this.
Sure. So in Vistula, about 6% of individuals are without health insurance. In the DeVoe neighborhood, roughly about 4%. So when you just think about preventative care, a lot of times that's a barrier. If I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, if I'm going to have to pay 100% out of my pocket to go to a primary care physician for a bump I feel, or maybe I'm not feeling a little under the weather, and I go without that because I don't have health insurance, a lot of times those red flags that could have been caught early and really inexpensively spiral out of control and snowball into becoming really costly issues that either cost a lot of money to address on the back end or sometimes, unfortunately, result in premature death.
Let me ask you a question, because obviously we came out of the backside of the pandemic and everybody was saying A, B, C, X, Y, Z were all because of the pandemic, or they were building before the pandemic. I think about mental health in young people and that being a topic of conversation. But when you look at this specifically, Justin, did you guys say, was this a pre-pandemic buildup or was it compiled by what we went through?
It's certainly a pre-pandemic buildup. We've talked a lot in this country about healthcare disparities, but what's not getting as much attention is the longevity disparity that we see just within the same community. And I think that it's one thing to talk about not being able to get access to healthcare and the like. It's another thing that face 22-year age difference. That's less time that an older adult has to spend with their grandkids and watching them raise.
Right.
And being able to give back to the community, which we see older adults doing each and every day.
Let's go to the next slide. This talking about the utilization of preventative health measures and things that everybody takes for granted. You look at this list, and down there at the bottom, if you look at your screen closely, Justin, we're talking dental visits. We're talking core preventative services for older women and so on. Talk us through this a little bit.
So starting with the mouth, right? In many ways, the mouth is the gateway to the health for the rest of our body. And for dental visits, preventive dental visits, individuals are going to the dentist twice as much in DeVoe in terms of those preventive dental visits than they are in Vistula. And then everything else just kind of follows suit from there. There's a lot of other issues that people are not accessing to those core preventative services, getting cancer screening, getting checked for cholesterol, and
right.
if medications are
things
needed
that would
to address
happen
that.
during a checkup, right?
Absolutely.
With your primary care physician.
So it's much easier when those issues are caught early on to do course corrections with your health, with your behaviors, with your diet, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But if they're never caught, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and kind of continue down that same unhealthy path.
Let me ask you this as we go to our last slide. Is this because of the lack of development that has happened around this neighborhood over the years?
There's certainly a lack of job opportunities. We've seen unemployment rate being roughly 35% in the Vistula neighborhood, much less in DeVoe neighborhood. And so, lack of job opportunities means maybe I don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning to go, get exercise, so on and so forth.
And it leads to unhealthy behaviors as well.
I mean, people are twice as likely to be smoking in Vistula. They're twice as likely not to get enough physical activity. Also, really increased risk of not getting enough sleep. So all those things, all those factors day after day, when those behaviors continue, result in unhealthy lack of health and also lack of years of life.
One of the things that stood out from this study, and it's a line that you said you came up with, and it grabs the attention and it kind of hits you over the head with the reality of this, is that it is one of Toledo's oldest neighborhoods, and you said?
And it's a neighborhood where you're least likely to live in old age.
That's unbelievable.
And we're doing work. We feel compelled to do something about this. We've been partnering with Mobile Meals to bring a meal program to the Madonna homes. Before that, there was no meal program in this neighborhood, so no easy access to safe, affordable, and good, nutritious food.
Sure.
We've been partnering with ABC Healthcare to bring a state-tested nursing assistant training right there. Instead of people having to go to Maumee, we know that 52% of the households in Vistula have no form of transportation. So transportation is a barrier to getting training and employment. We've been working with Grace Community Center to provide produce to older adults that are living, over 200 older adults that are living in Vistula, so they get fresh produce because there's no local grocery in the Vistula neighborhood. And we've been working hard to get transportation bus passes to individuals that are living there so they have a safe way to get to the grocery store that's not in their neighborhood, safe way to get to their dental appointments.
Justin, I got to commend you guys, because I think Area Office on Aging people might think to themselves, go when needed, but you guys are going to the people and taking this data and hopefully making changes.
That's right. And our goal is so that 5-10 years from now, when we ask your viewers, where's the neighborhood where you think people are living the longest, they'll say right where about I live.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Justin, thank you so much for kind of diving into this. We're going to make sure our viewers know more going forward.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
You bet. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. Glad to have you with us. The authors of the book for our next segment starts off by telling the reader you can't avoid conflict. In fact, there is a point where both authors say you should embrace those opportunities because we're becoming a culture that avoids it. The book right there, Power Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict, and it's almost a choose-your-own-adventure book with a table of contents that sends your specific conflict resolution your way.
100%. So we call these ACEs, or acute conflict emergencies. So we have written the book designed that if you are in an acute conflict emergency, something has happened, someone's stolen credit for your idea, you've got unclear expectations, you're feeling overwhelmed, you need to say no. You go to the table of contents and say, which chapter should I jump into right now? So the book is definitely designed to be able to do that. And it's also grounded in research. And we also set up 4 dimensions of constructive conflict that you can use across any situation as well. So you can either read the book all the way through, or you can choose your own adventure, so, as you say.
David, let me ask you a question. Is it fair to say that a lot of the idea or thoughts in this book come from the perspective that I am right and the other person is wrong, or I'm the better person in this scenario? Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's a fair assessment of what conflict looks like for most people. I think it's one of the things that gets in our way as human beings. We have a bias towards our own experience, our own knowledge, our own thoughts. So those are right. That's what we know. And one of the solutions for that is one of those four dimensions that Karin mentioned is connection, clarity around what success looks like. So connection, are we connected as human beings? The clarity, do we both have an understanding of what success looks like and what that outcome needs to be for the other person? Curiosity, which is how we get there, to ask the questions, be open to one another's perspectives, and then commitment to be able to move forward together with a shared agreement that's going to help us take action. And if we can invest in those four dimensions, one, we will have much less destructive conflict. And two, the good conflicts, the productive ones we do have, they're going to be way better and way more productive, get us better outcomes, save us time, and improve our relationships.
I was really glad to have something, a narrative talking about things like this and an application, if you will, post-pandemic. That was something that obviously was very important, Karin.
Yeah, so we have noticed, and in our research, we did this World Workplace Conflict and Collaboration research, 5,000 participants in 45 countries, to see what is happening since the pandemic with conflict. Is it getting worse, which was our suspicion, and it is. And it's also a new breed of conflict because you had all the regular conflict that was going on. And now you've got people who've done fast pivots to working from home. They're feeling isolated. There's mental health challenges. There's managers who don't know how to necessarily manage well in this new environment. And all that creates what we call conflict cocktails. And so we need to equip people to have these conversations, to clarify the expectations, to build deeper connections when they're feeling isolated and lonely, to speak up when they're feeling overwhelmed in a productive way.
I want to pose this to both of you here, and you give these 12 greatest of all time, the GOATs, if you will, phrases that you can use in dealing with workplace conflict. But I pose this to you because as I was reading this over and I thought to myself, well, these phrases are all great, but it's really how they're being delivered, because you can say, I hear you, I understand you, let's work through this. But you can also say, I hear you, I understand you, but I guess we can work through this conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two things. One, it's the relationship that you have. And that depends how the phrase is going to be interpreted. So imagine you're in a conflict with a coworker named Joe. Now, if just last week, Joe got you out of a jam when your little boy was sick and he told your boss how great you are at pivot tables, and now you think Joe stole your idea. Well, he comes to you and says, I really care about you. I know we can find a solution we can all work with here. You're like, oh, yeah, I trust Joe. He probably had my best interest at heart. But if Joe threw you under the bus last week, you're like, hard no, Joe, I don't trust you, no matter what words are coming out of your mouth. So that's one. And then it is also the facial expressions and the body language, which I'll let David speak to.
Yeah, chapter 5 of the book, we actually dive into beyond words. How are you delivering? What's your sincere intention? And I would even elevate for everyone watching or listening, you're saying, okay, hey, I understand. We can take that up a notch as a powerful phrase. What if instead I replace, hey, I understand, which is assumptive, with, here's what I understand. Can you correct me where I'm wrong? Which then I am recounting, closing the loop to make sure that I actually do understand whatever they were trying to say, and assuming I don't have it 100% and inviting their feedback. Now we're opening the door to a productive conversation. And that's what these 300 plus powerful phrases are all about. Can we open the door to a meaningful conversation?
David, let me ask you on that topic, just defining conflict and somebody recognizing, am I in a situation just where I need to be an adult and this is part of an adult work environment, or I can define this as conflict?
Sure. And there are conflicts that we choose not to engage in. We have a strong difference of opinions, but the stakes are so low that okay, that's a conflict. We have a strong difference, but it really doesn't matter. I'm going to choose to either overlook that, ignore it, or not engage with that because it's not that important. But there are plenty of subjects at work where we should be having meaningful, productive conversations, where we do have intense differences of opinion, different perspectives, and the stakes matter. It's outcome for our employee experience as a team, for the customers, constituents, clients we're serving, the products we're delivering, and the outcomes really do matter. And so we want to engage on those. We just want to do that in a productive way.
Coming up, you got any negative Nellies at work, at school, maybe at home? We dive into that right after this. Welcome back here on Leading Edge. We are talking about the book, Power Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict. And in this segment, the authors tell us how to go high when others around us are going low.
I wanted to jump specifically into something that I think a lot of people are dealing with, Karin, and it's cancel culture versus mature and patient solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have a chapter that's all about seeing others differently. Dealing with conflict when you see the world completely differently, and it is interesting because so you do see so much of this where a cancel culture is like, I'm not listening. I'm just going to tell you exactly why you're stupid or wrong or this or that, and that is showing up not curious. And if there's anything that we would say from the 4 dimensions when dealing with it, to really, if you are really serious about trying to navigate in a cancel culture, it is, are we connected as human beings? Are you even giving people a chance? Because I even know personally, some of the things the conflicts that I've been in over the last couple of years are in conversations where people have shut down and they're not even working to create a real human connection. They're canceling, as you say, first. So are we connected, and are we really curious about other people's perspectives? Are we listening? And when we ask a question, are we really listening to the answer? Or are we already going in assuming that you know exactly your position is right? These powerful phrases won't work. If you're coming from that frame, if you were coming from a cancel culture framework, like I am right and you are wrong, don't buy this book. Yeah, I mean, honestly, because we are advocating for real human connection and real curiosity.
David, let me ask. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing that's important to note about the cancel culture issue, it is not limited to just one belief system or political affiliation. It is a widespread thing where we label something as toxic and I'm not going to engage with it, and we remove our opportunity to learn. And so that's the challenge there. It's okay for me to disagree, and no, I see it very differently. But that doesn't mean I can't engage or have a relationship.
David, what do you do about negative Nellies, pile-oners, if you will? I'll use that phrase. How do you, I guess, get yourself to a point where you don't jump into that water? Because it's easier to go negative, is it not?
It is, and I think it's chapter 27 is all about those chronic complainers, and we give you some powerful phrases because there's a couple of different kinds of complainers. There's the person who genuinely cares, but they kind of have a negative affect, and just that's the way they engage with the world, and you can quickly differentiate that from the person I say who, they just have to complain because they're a complainer. They can be at a resort getting a coconut oil hand massage, and they complain the oil smells like coconut. So if it's somebody like that, you can ask them, hey, are you interested? What would a successful outcome do for you here? What does success look like? What would you like to achieve? And you very quickly find out if they are interested in a positive outcome or if they just need to complain because that's who they are and that's what they're going to do. If it's the latter, we give you some phrases to disengage and get back to work. If it's the former, we give you some phrases to help. All right, well, let's talk about that. How do you think we can get there? What can we do? Once we have a shared understanding of what success will do for us, now we can start generating some solutions. So it depends on the person.
When we talk about negativity, there is a chapter in here about what if I'm perceived as negative. And this one came out of multiple conversations over the years with clients who were coming to us and saying, my boss thinks I'm negative, my peers think I'm negative, and I'm not negative. I just care. And so, David, you want to just give like a couple of those powerful phrases?
Absolutely. It's a common situation. I have been there myself. And so often it's that I am seeing somebody brings an idea up. I immediately start going, oh, that's going to be a problem because of X, Y, or Z. What I'm really saying is, if you want this to work, here's what we need to take care of. And that's a powerful phrase. So if you're that person and you get labeled as negative because you're always bringing up issues and you want things to work, just rephrase. Instead of saying, hey, that won't work, say, wow, I see why that's an interesting idea. I can see the merit in what you're talking about there. Here are 3 things I think we should consider in order to make that work. And if the person's like, ooh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that, I don't want to do all that work, they leave the idea alone. Or they say, wow, I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's figure out how to solve those.
When it comes to managing people, when it comes to just relationships, period, there's an old school way, there's an old school thought. I always think about coaching and some of the coaches who are labeled as, oh, they can't adjust to today's player, that kind of a thing. So is there any merit in being old school, or do we have to be part of this new culture set?
And I think that's a great question because it depends on what we mean by old school. So I think one of the positive things about the workplace today and emerging generations that there is an emerging, you see this in all the data, there's an emerging need for support, connection, transparency, purpose, and meaning in our work. And as human-centered advocates of human-centered leadership and human-centered cultures, we are huge advocates of those things. And that does produce a challenge for managers and leaders to be able to lead that way. On the other hand, there is some balance to it. And I'll let Karin maybe address the other side.
Yeah, so we call this landing in the and, so that you need to focus, you land in the and of results and relationships. And what we see is a lot of, maybe when you're saying old school, sometimes old school is I'm all about results. And new school is we're all about relationships. And it's how do you in any interaction focus on landing in the and of both and creating an environment that's going to get you the results that you need and foster human connection.
Thanks so much to David Dye and Karin Hurt. The book, once again, Power Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict. It drops May 14th. As a reminder, if you missed any part of our conversation, you can always find us on the WTOL 11 YouTube page. And we are a podcast as well. So when you're driving around town, bring us up. Listen in to the interviews and the talk. We appreciate it as always. We hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time on Leading Edge.